back to the Meeple Marathon. Today we're going to talk about Comic Hunters. I'm going to give you my review of this game at the end of the video, but let's go ahead and talk about how to play the game first. Comic Hunters is a set collection game where you are going to utilize 4 different drafting mechanics in order to gain comic book cards. You can see some here that have, symbols of certain heroes listed here. Sometimes some of them will have multiple heroes listed. I can't seem to find any right now, but they also have symbols down here that represent various aspects of those comic books. During setup, you're going to establish which of the superheroes are worth the most. So in this scenario or in this game, Hulk would be worth the most points, then Captain America, Black Widow, and Thor, followed by Doctor Strange, Spider-Man, Iron Man, and Black Panther. These are always randomized, so they're going to be different every game. You also have down here the highlights and which ones are going to be worth money. For example, here you have the #1 issue at the top. So the #1 issue, then the first appearance, then the new look. So if it's a new look for a character, then we also have verses or epic battles, and then we have special editions. So again, these are going to be randomized. Only 3 of them are ever going to be used. So before we jump into the styles of drafts, it's important to note your schedule. So every game is going to last 3 rounds or 3 weeks, 3 years, however you want to consider it, 3 months. The schedule here is always going to have 3 instances where you can gain cards through a draft. And then there's going to be a period when you finish out the round where you can assemble your collection. So you can see here that this first round is going to consist of the store, the flea market, and the convention. So we're going to do the store, we're going to do the flea market, and the convention. But I'm going to talk about how each 4 of these works now in order. You'll notice that auction site pops up here and here. So we'll definitely get to all 4. So when you visit the comic book store, you're going to simply draw 4 cards, and this is a very standard draft that most people are used to. You're going to draw 4 cards, you're going to look at them, you're going to choose 1 to keep, and you're going to pass the other 4 to your right or left, depending on the direction that the draft is going. You'll receive those 3 cards, you'll choose 1, pass the rest, you'll receive 2 cards, save 1, pass the rest, and then you'll be stuck with 1. Again, you're going to be looking for a couple of things on the cards here. One is, in this case, you probably want to save as many Thors as possible because as many Hulks as possible, because they're going to be the worth the most points at the end of the game. Also here we can see that #1 first editions, #1 in the series is going to be worth a lot of money. Same here, these 2. So probably if I was looking for a specific card to start with, I would probably start here with the Red Hulk #1 first appearance. Then if it came back around to me, I'd go for this one. And then if it came back around to me, these really are kind of the same. So then I would choose which kind of set do I want to try and build, a Black Panther or a Spider-Man. But that's essentially the store. The store represents the current age comics, the comics of the 2000s and up. These are the ones that come out, and when they come out, they're in the store. You just walk up, you find a copy, and you purchase it. Easy peasy, not worth as much money. They're technically only worth kind of 1 point each, represented by the ones on the front and the back. For your level 2 cards, you're going to be going to the flea market. So level 2 cards represent the comics from the 80s and 90s. And so the flea market is that space where these are obviously not new releases, so they're not going to appear in the comic book store, but you can go down to the local flea market on the weekends and find people selling their older copies for pretty cheap, and you'll be able to add them to your collection. So the flea market is set up like this. You're going to begin a row, 1 row per player in the game. So say there's 3 players in the game. We're going to start off with dealing out 3 rows like this, and we'll go ahead and flip these cards over. So we've got a Spider-Man, and an Iron Man. All right, now, starting with the first player, you have 2 options. You can either draw a card and add it to any row of your choice. All right, this is similar to an I split, you choose type of draft in a way. Or you can pick up all the cards in the row. The maximum amount of cards that can be in a row are 4, and there can never be more rows than there are a number of players who still need to pick up a row of cards, if that makes sense. So say it's my turn, I'm the first player. I would go ahead and pick up this Black Panther, and maybe I want to go with the Iron Man. These are almost too identical as far as set collecting is concerned, so I'll put that there. Then the next person's going to go, and they're like, ooh, another Black Panther. I would really love to put him here, but I'm afraid that the person before me is going to scoop this up. So I'm going to put this here because I'm also going for a similar set. Then the third player is going to go, and he's like, well, I really want that Iron Man. Maybe I'll make some of these other ones look pretty juicy for the other guys. So then it comes back around to the first player again. He's like, this is pretty good. I like this setup. Maybe we're going for special editions in this game, or maybe I just really want these 2 Spider-Man and Black Panther cards. So I'm going to pick these up. I'm no longer part of this I split, you choose draft. So now we move on to the second player, and they're like, well, I could go here, but I want to see some more cards. So I'm going to pick this one up, and yeah, we're just going to go here. We're going to even things out. Third player, they'll go, and they're like, ooh, I really want this Captain America. I'm going to risk it, and I'm going to put it down here with Iron Man just to see if I can end up with it. Back to the second player, and they're like, ooh, Hulk. All right, I'm going to put Hulk here. Comes back around to fourth player. Maybe they pick this up. If it comes back around to you and you're the only player without a set of cards, you have not gained any cards from the flea market, your only choice is to pick up the last remaining pile. So hopefully you planned out at that point well enough, and some of these cards are going to work out for you. And for your Era 3 cards, you're going to have to go to the auction site. Let's just say eBay. So these are the comics that collectors know have value, they have kept up with and protected, and so they are auctioning them off on their eBay site. And think of it as they're auctioning them off in groupings. And so you're going to bid on a group of comics, and this is where you're going to spend your money. This is where your secret stash comes in. So the way you set up the comics are from the 60s and 70s. So the golden age of comics. So to set up the auction site, you're going to always have a pile of 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. You're always going to have a bottom pile of 3. 1, 2, 3. And then everything in the middle is going to have 4 cards. Now, how many sets you have in the middle depends on the player count. So again, if I was only playing with 2 players, I would stop here. If I'm playing with 3 players, however, I'm going to have a middle set of 1, 2, 3, 4. If I had 4 players, I would have a second set of 4. At this point, and you can deal these out any which way you want, but at this point, you're going to reveal all of the cards, keeping them in rows based on their set. So these are the sets that you are now auctioning on. Starting with the first player is going to choose a row, and they're going to say, all right, I am now going to bid on this top row. We're going to go for this top row first. I'm going to bid, and they can start their bid at anything. And they maybe say, I'm going to, and this is one of the drawbacks of the game. There is no way to keep track of the bidding and where the bid is at, but it's going to be pretty short. It should be pretty easy to keep this all in your head. But maybe you say, I'm going to start here for 5. Okay, so bid is 5. Maybe somebody else comes in and says, oh, I'll bid you 6. And there's no turn order here. People can just completely jump in with their bid. And you keep going around until nobody is outbidding the one person. They will then pay their amount, say it came to 10. So they're going to come all the way down here to 5, and they get all these cards. All right. Then if the first player is still in the action, they will then choose another row to bid on. If the first player won the row that they bid on, then it'll pass to the person to their left. They will again pick a row. Which one do you want to bid on? They will start the bid, and it will go from there. If you are, again, the last person in line, you are going to have to take the row that is left, but you're also going to have to pay for it. It's not free. So in this case, you're actually having to pay equal to the market value of the cards. And these cards are all 3 value cards. So this is 9 points right here. Maybe you should have bid a little higher earlier on in the game. Who knows? But in this case, if you didn't have 9, you would simply choose which ones you can afford. And any that you cannot afford are going to go into the convention deck. We're going to talk about the convention deck here in just a second. All right, for the convention, you will have set aside, if you're playing with a standard 3 to 4 players, 10 cards from each deck. So 10 cards from the 1 era, 10 cards from the 2 era, and 10 cards from the 3 era, and you're going to give them a good shuffle. Then you're going to create a 5x5 grid with kind of outer ring and an inner ring. That's going to leave the very center of the grid open. So let's go ahead and do that. At this point now, starting with the first player, working to the last player, and then backwards, so a snake draft, you're going to choose a single row or a single column, and you get to pick up all of the comics that share the same hero. So in this case, let's look here. This top row would have 3 Doctor Stranges in it. It's pretty good. All right, but maybe you're not going for Doctor Strange. So let's continue looking here. There's 2 Iron Mans here on the bottom row. There's 2 Black Widows here. Those are probably some of the best options. There's 2 Thors right here. So Doctor Strange is looking the best. Now, the one trick to this is that you have the ability, before you pick up your cards, to choose one card, a single card, and move it as many spaces as you want, as long as you're not hopping over a card or hopping kitty corner over a card or going outside of this 5x5 grid space. So if you are the first person to choose, you essentially have 1, 2, 3, 4 cards you could move, and you can only move them into the center. All right. So this one, I just realized there is 3 Captain Americas here. So if I'm the first player, maybe I'm going after Captain America. This looks pretty juicy. So I'm going to move this down, and then I'm going to choose this row, and I'm going to pick up all the Captain Americas from that row. All right. I've now changed the entire landscape of the board for player number 2. So player number 2 now says, what can I do to get the most amount of cards here? And Doctor Strange is looking pretty good. Unfortunately, he can't just like flip-flop these. That would be nice. But he could, if he wanted to, take, say, this card and come all the way down and go all the way over. This card did not hop any. It did not go outside the 5x5 grid. It did not go kitty corner. All right. Or maybe he wants this Thor to go all the way here. Or, there's a lot of possibilities here. There you go. That is the convention. You don't have to pay for any of these, but it is this unique snake draft where you have this ability, the unique mechanic to move one card around to help set up that ability to pick up as many cards as you want of one particular Marvel superhero. All right. Once you have all of your cards from whatever round you are playing through, you're going to go to assemble your collection. So let's take a look at how you do that. Okay, so let's just say these are the cards that I have collected throughout the game. And for right now, we're not going to be too concerned about which superheroes are worth the most or which highlights are worth the most. You would be in the game, but for the purposes of this, we're just going to look at how big a collections can we make. So to start a collection, you have to have at least 2 of a particular superhero. So this would start my Spider-Man collection. I cannot start a collection with a single card. You can start a collection with more than that, though. So I have 3 Spider-Mans, 2 Doctor Stranges, 3 Thors, 1, 2, 3, 4 Captain Americas. All right, so let's shift some of these around a little bit. And then I have a single Black Panther, or no, because this could count as a Captain America. So I can make a choice. I could start a Black Panther collection, or I can keep these all Captain America. And during future assemble collections, you can move cards around. So you can move cards from one collection to the other if they're double heroes. The trick with this, though, is that any cards I keep in my collection, I have to pay for. So I can't just keep all of these except for my Scarlet Witch. My Scarlet Witch will give me essentially 2 money, but all of this is worth way more than 2 money. This Spider-Man is worth 4. This Doctor Strange is worth 2. This Thor is worth 9. And this Captain America is worth 7. So let's think about this. Maybe we take our 1 Scarlet Witch and it's going to pay for our 2 Doctor Stranges. So I'm going to flip this over to represent that we've kind of spent this. I'm also going to take my 3 Thors and decide I'm okay. I'm not going to go after Thor. This can be used to pay for most of this. All right. So this is 9. I'm going to, again, flip these over. I know how much I've got here because of the number on the back. So I'm up to 9, 11. And right now I want to keep 9 total. So I've got 2 more I could spend. So I could keep this 1 Spider-Man, or I can keep these 2. And so what I'm going to do here is I'm going to start my collection with these 2 Spider-Man, and I'm actually going to hold on to this one. I really like this comic. I like this card. I like the symbols on it. You can keep, between rounds, up to 2 cards in hand. Most of the time, you're either putting them into a collection and paying for it, or you're using the cards as currency to pay for your collection. However, you can hold up to 2 cards, so I'm going to choose to hold on to this 1 card. These cards now that I used as payment go back into the convention deck. So I will see them again. All right. At this point, then, you're just going to set your collection off to the side because, again, in future collections, assemble collection phases, you will be able to add to this collection. You'll be able to move cards around that are double heroes, rearrange your collection as you see fit. I'll be able to add this Spider-Man to my current collection as long as I can pay for it, so on and so forth. So coming back to our schedule here, you'll notice that we hit up the store, the flea market, and the auction site 2 times each. And we go to a convention each week. So this first week, it's store, flea market, then convention. Then it's going to be store, auction site, convention, then flea market, auction site, convention. As of right now, this schedule does not change. It gives you even amounts to find the equal number of cards. The convention kind of throwing things into a mix because that's a crapshoot of what you may be able to obtain. At the end of the game, you're simply going to use your collection and the hero track and the highlights board, which the highlights board you should be keeping up with throughout the game. The hero track and then the varied collection sets here, you're going to determine what your point value is at the end of the game, and the player with the most points wins the game. So now that we've discussed how to play the game, let me give you my thoughts on the game. And the first thing I want to start off with, because this contains the most gripes, is the quality of the components. Now, this game was originally produced in Brazil. There was not the ability to get the IP license for Marvel, and so the designer, I'm not sure where he is from, he or she is from, but this game used to only be available in a foreign country. If you purchased it, the instructions and the text on the board would be in Spanish. And, you know, for the most part, the cards were the same because Thor is still Thor in whatever country. And most of these are numbers, so that wouldn't be a problem. So if you could get a translated version of the instructions, the rule book, you could easily play it. But again, it wasn't a game that you could pick up in the United States. Now, Spin Masters and Arcane Wonders, along with a couple other companies here we have on the back. It says Buccaneros. See, I don't know if that's the original publisher, and Meeple BR. and Dice Tower Essentials. Now, Dice Tower Essentials, I believe, is from the Dice Tower, them giving this game their stamp of approval. But Arcane Wonders and mostly Spin Master here, you guys should be ashamed of yourselves. I mean, honestly, this is the cheapest produced game as far as a game that is heavily sought after in the strategy board game space that I've ever seen. These tokens that you gave us are an absolute joke. I can self-produce my better tokens from game crafters. All right. And they're tiny, they're very thin, cheap cardboard. The first player token is massive, way bigger than it needs to be. And then you give us these tiny little tokens. Now, I understand that for the most part, you're wanting them to fit on this space. You could have made this bigger. You could have made this bigger. These tickets don't need to be as big as they are. This could have been blown up. I mean, come on, guys. A little graphical design editing, and you could have made it so that these tokens could have been bigger. But they're very cheap. They're very tiny. And it's pitiful at this point. There's so few of them, and they really cheaped out on this. Card quality is okay. The thickness is okay, but they're really stiff. It's not like a nice linen finish or anything like that. I do appreciate that they're kind of matte so that it's easy to see the artwork and whatnot. But again, this is an area they could have stepped up. Also, I feel like they missed an opportunity here to bring us a larger board. Now, again, I realize that they're trying to minimize the box space. The box space is essentially enough slots for 3 decks of cards. You'll put your tokens in here and the score pad, and then we're done. So they were trying to fit in a certain size box, but I would have loved to have seen this board be bigger and have given us space to fill out the 5x5 convention grid and then make it color coded. So, okay, give us blue, anything that's got some blue color in it, this is going to be for the flea market. And then give us shades for the auction site or something like that. Because you're never going to have a row more than 5, and you're never going to have more than 5 rows or cards in a column. So if you give us a 5x5 grid, every single one of your drafting mechanics is going to fit on that. Now, again, I realize that's asking for way more production. It would boost the cost of the game up, but this game is pretty inexpensive as it is. For better quality components and a nicer, bigger board, I easily would have paid $40, $50 for this game. $25 is very reasonable, but I feel like we came in a little too low in that regards. Also, and this is a huge, huge gripe, I can get over the cheap tokens. I can put them in coin capsules, or I can go on Etsy and get something else. I can sleeve my cards, and that'll help with the shuffling issue. I can even put my own insert inside the box. But if you're going to use stickers instead of shrink wrapping your game, which I'm perfectly fine with, make sure you use the low stick stickers, reusable stickers, whatever it needs to be. These stickers do not come off the box. You are producing a board game about collecting things and keeping them nice. And you gave us a box that if you try and take the stickers off, you're going to ruin the box. Now, I'm not one of those people that is going to call them up and demand that they give me another box. I'm not too concerned about a dent in my corner or a scratch on my box or a rip in the lid. But it just seems very, very ridiculous that they didn't test those stickers beforehand, that they couldn't put better stickers on their box or use a different wrap on their box, whatever it may be. F for failure as far as keeping the box closed. I'm just going to throw that out there. Huge pet peeve of mine. Like, I hate it when I buy a used game and someone has used like packing tape to keep the box closed, and then the box exterior is ruined. or I have to live with packing tape on the outside of the box. Why? Use painter's tape. Use a rubber band. I don't care. Just have some more respect for your game. So, as far as component quality is concerned, pretty low as far as my standards. And I don't really feel like I have super high standards. I'm not asking for, Chip Theory Games quality stuff here. I'm just asking for kind of industry standard stuff at this point for a game like this. All right, moving on. Let's talk about gameplay. I really do like what they're doing here. It's not a overly complicated game. You're essentially looking for various aspects on the cards. You're looking for the superhero symbols, or you're looking for the highlight symbols. You're trying to amass the most of those over a collection. But you also can, you don't have to all be going for Hulk. If somebody gets all the Hulks in the first draft, it's not the end of the world. The fact that they've roped in different drafting mechanics, they don't just do, all right, this way you pass left, this time you pass right. We're going to do 1s, 2s, 3s, and then we're going to do this big draft of the convention cards. So each one feels a little different. I do not really understand why there's this passing of the first player token. I did not mention this in my how to play, but essentially after, say, the flea market, you're going to pass the first player token to a person you choose. And then after the auction site, you're going to pass this to the first player, whoever you want to be first player. So there easily could be somebody who could be left out of ever having the chance to be the first player. Now, I'm guessing this was meant to be a catch-up mechanic so that you could keep whoever you feel like is in the lead from being first player. But to me, it feels like a very unnecessary kind of gotcha element in the game, instead of just passing it around to the left every time it needs to be passed, whether that's at the end of the round or mid-round or whatever it may be. Did not understand that choice as far as gameplay. Another thing, and this doesn't really come into component quality or anything like that, I really don't understand why your secret stash is representative of fair tickets. Why are these not little dollar bills? Secret stash to me, I think of the money you earned mowing the grass and you've stuffed underneath your mattress and you're going to pull out before you go to, the flea market or you bid on an auction site. The tickets just really don't make sense to me. I realize it's just an arbitrary number, but again, graphical design decision here that could have been changed from Brazil to here, and they just chose not to. For the individual, drafting mechanics, the store one is fine. I really like the convention center one. The randomness of it, the ability to move it around. There can be a little analysis paralysis when it comes to the convention of people staring at the board and trying to figure out the way to maximize their draw in that turn. The one I'm not a super huge fan of is the auction site. Simply because I feel like you're penalized if you are the one who is not able to win a bid. If you're trying to be savvy and save your money, you could very well end up still paying a huge chunk of change at the end, simply because the row that is left and nobody bid on, these are all 3 value cards at this point. So even the smallest row, which is going to contain only 3 cards, is 9 points on your secret stash track here. Your secret stash only is ever going to go up to 15, and there's no way to gain more. So you would think that on average, your bid to win an auction should be about 7.5. And on top of that, any secret stash that you do not spend converts to victory points at the end of the game. So if you're trying to be savvy and not spend a lot of money and they're just like, you know what, I'd rather have the victory points. I'll take whatever row people don't want, whichever ends up being the least popular row, you still get penalized. I really didn't understand that aspect of the game. But the store is fine, standard draft. Flea market was very interesting with the kind of I split you choose mechanic. The convention's a lot of fun. Again, can be bogged down Really didn't like the auction draft mechanic. As far as the solo mode is concerned, I feel like it works pretty well. I think that they arbitrarily just were like, okay, after you've taken all your cards, the AI gets the rest, making them pretty tough to overcome, but that's fine. This isn't really meant to be a solo game. It's fun to be able to learn it and see through the cards, and if you are all by yourself, go ahead and run it solo. But this is meant to be a multiplayer, plays best at 3 to 4, multiplayer set collection game where you can all sit down, play it with people who have an interest in the industry. The best part about this game is flipping through all of these cards and seeing all of these comic book covers. These are all real comic book covers. So you may come across one that you may have owned at some point or another, or maybe still do own, and that can be a lot of fun. So obviously this game is geared towards a very specific audience. It's, you know, for the strategy board gamer or anyone who is seriously into comic books. But that's perfectly fine. I think for those people, it does a great job. It gives you exactly what you want. It gives you that a shot of nostalgia, and just enough strategy to make it feel like, you know, you actually, if you're playing well, that you're actually going to do well in the game. So those are my thoughts on the game. If you have any questions, please feel free to let me know in the comment section below. If you enjoyed this video, please consider giving it a thumbs up and subscribing to the channel. At this point, I do not plan on doing a solo playthrough of the game. Again, it's okay solo, but it has been more enjoyable playing it multiplayer. But if you are interested in seeing a solo playthrough, let me know. They're not long, so it's something I could probably easily do and put up on the channel. Other than that, once again, thanks for watching. Have a great day.